Right, hello. My name is Alexander Barron, and this is International Full Threat Timeline Hangout 55. Its title is Feminist Indoctrination. I won't be covering much in the way of news, but I'll be going over a lot of old stuff and a couple of new pieces, fairly encouraging from down under. But I just want to give you the big picture. Earlier this year, I published an article called "The 5 Fails of Feminism." I'll put a link below. The 5 fails of feminism are dishonest semantics, deceptive rhetoric, selective factoids, contrived statistics, and false narratives. Put those all together and you create feminist ideology. Semantics are the words we use, the words and phrases, and we put those together to create rhetoric. If you look at some of the way that the mainstream media frames issues around Donald Trump and law and order, for example, you'll see some incredibly dishonest semantics and rhetoric which is just off the planet. What they do a lot of the time is they'll use words out of context, or they'll apply 2 definitions to a word. A great one is racism. We hear this racism so much, but what does racism mean? It can mean virtually anything. It can mean anything from punching somebody in the face to refusing to give somebody a job to almost anything can be considered racist. Rhetoric is, say, the way words are put together to create arguments. Factoids, facts can be true, but it's possible to assemble true facts to create entirely false impression. For example, I remember a joke from the Cold War in which there was a race between the top Russian 400 meter runner in the world, the top Russian and the top American, just head to head, and the American beat the Russian out of sight. And when it was reported by Pravda, it said that the Russian running against world-class competition was runner-up, but the American could only finish first from last, something like that. And nowadays it would be the other way around, because in my humble opinion, the American media is a lot more dishonest than Russian media. Contrived statistics, another one. Feminists love statistics, especially with regard to rape. They pull them literally out of thin air. They are the only ones who do this, of course. You find it with the race industry, with the health, the anti-smoking industry, all sorts of things. The late Judith Hatton once concluded that they'd gone so far to the top that passive smoking became more dangerous than actual smoking. And then you've got false narratives, putting all this together to create false narratives. A great one is the patriarchy. The feminists believe there's this all-encompassing male conspiracy called the patriarchy, which suppressed women throughout history, keeps all the top spaces, top jobs for men. Women are kept barefoot and pregnant. But when you actually look at the way history happened and the way our ancestors had it, I've got a cartoon here. I'll put this on the screen. This is one of my favourite ones. I call this Man the Hunter. See, that's Man the Hunter. What happened was that societies the most precious assets, the most valuable assets of any primitive society were the young and fertile women. No fertile women, no, the tribe ceases to exist. So they put into practice mores and shibboleth standards of behaviour to protect them. So women stayed at home while the men hunted the dinosaurs, because one woman is worth how many men? You know, how many babies can a woman have, and how many men can you get the point? This is how they built on this to cut this rape culture nonsense. The idea that societies developed, male dominated societies developed this hierarchy so that women could be raped at will, etc. It's still total garbage. Women were the property of men. Well, no, yes and no. Traditionally, a woman was, if you like, the property of her husband, but he was also liable for her well-being and for her debts. You could say the same way that children are the property of their parents, but they can't do with them as they want. Traditionally, the penalty for rape was death. So because of that, the forensics in those days weren't what they are today. There were some forensics, but there were no CCTV cameras all over Rome, for example, ancient Rome. So the penalty was death, but a woman, if she was raped, she had to resist to the utmost and to report it as soon as possible. And women cried rape even then. So everything about feminism is false, and when it comes to rape, they're absolute complete rubbish. The statistics are the big ones. As I say, they pull these out of thin air. Right, let me deal with statistics first, because this is, you'll hear this all the time, that 1 in 5, 1 in 4, 1 in 3 women will be raped during her lifetime, will be raped in her first year at college, etc. In 2012, I'll play this clip. This is Barack Obama, who was then President of the United States.
Today we're taking another important step with a focus on our college campuses. It is estimated that 1 in 5 women on college campuses has been sexually assaulted during their time there. 1 in 5. These young women worked so hard just to get into college. Often their parents are doing everything they can to help them pay for it. So when they finally make it there, only to be assaulted, that is not just a nightmare for them and their families. It's an affront to everything they've worked so hard to achieve.
Yeah, that was actually 2014, not 2012. It was January 22nd, 2014. 1 in 5 women have been sexually assaulted at college. If he actually believed that, why did he send his eldest daughter to Harvard 3 years later? Of course he didn't believe it. Nobody believes this garbage. Even feminists don't. We give these people far too much credit. I say you'll find that January 22nd, 2014, and the same entry is was an interesting 2008, September 2008 video by Angry Harry, now deceased, about which he covers the truth about these ludicrous statistics. The 1 in 5, 1 in 4 goes back to, I'd like to say Mary Cost, but it goes back further than that. The first mentions I found of it were, if I find this, I won't play this because I've played it before, but it's a film called Lipstick, which was released April 2nd, 1976 in the United States. It parrots this complete nonsense about 1 in 5, about 1 in 5. The Mary Cost study is a so-called study. Dates to April 1987. This is called the scope of rape, and it's totally dishonest. She sent out questionnaires to women, and they do all sorts of things. They conflate rape and sexual assault, for example, and attempted rape. Attempted rape can be what? A guy offered to buy a woman a drink, and she suspects he was trying to drink a drink. You really don't know. You really don't understand how ludicrous these scenarios are. Camille Parlier made an excellent short video. There's a video on the timeline. Camille Parlier explaining date rape, and a lot of these women report these so-called rapes months, years, even decades later. By which time if you're a man, you're accused of raping a woman 3 years ago. How do you prove you didn't? Well, there's no way, by and large. And why would a woman lie? Why would she accuse you out of the blue like that? Believe women, it's complete nonsense. Now, my own researches lead me to believe that the two claims they make about the statistics. They claim that the vast majority of rapes go unreported, and then the rapes that make it to court, there's a lot are weeded out and they shouldn't be. When they get to court, juries refuse to convict. Well, yes, they refuse to convict because the cases are rubbish, and they've embarked on educating juries and the judiciary and even police officers, hardened cynical police officers, about what they call rape myths. Rape myths means believe women. Whatever a woman says, believe her. However ludicrous her story, if a 16-stone weightlifter claims to have been overpowered and raped by a cystic fibrosis sufferer, a 7-stone cystic fibrosis sufferer, then believe her. Why would she lie? The utter dishonesty of these women, and they are overwhelmingly women, it just beggars belief. So you'll find the cost study on the timeline, April 1987. And I've said this before. She asked the questionnaire respondents 10 questions, 5 regarding attempted rape and 5 actual rape. One of the questions is, have you ever given in to Have you given in to sexual intercourse when you didn't want to because you were overwhelmed by a man's continual arguments and pressure? What does that even mean? Begging her to go to bed with him? Have you had sexual intercourse when you didn't want to because a man gave you alcohol or drugs? Absolutely loaded question. A guy bought you a drink, or you shared a spliff with him, and you ended up in bed, or wherever else. And later you think, well, I didn't really want to do that. That was horrible. I mean, seriously? Now, on the subject of false narratives, there are a number of cases on the timeline. Emma-Jayne isn't on the timeline because it didn't involve an allegation of rape. But this was a woman who murdered her lover, stabbed him through the heart, sat and watched him die, lied about it. She was convicted of murder. The most corrupt lawyer in Britain, Harriet Wistrick, and her lover Julie Bindel, contrived to get the case back to the Court of Appeal, and Magson was convicted again. More recently, Fariasia Martin, who stabbed her lover to death in very similar circumstances, she had a murder conviction quashed, and she's now been convicted of manslaughter, given a 10-year sentence, and she'll be out before you know it. Absolutely outrageous. She claimed to have been sexually abused by him, all sorts of rubbish. And the big one is Emma Humphreys. You'll find that on her on the timeline. I did an in-depth article called "The Canonisation of Emma Humphreys," in which I explain. Well, I've used the sources they use, and you can see the way they twist these, the way they create these false narratives. Humphreys was again another a woman who stabbed her lover through the heart as he lay on his back in a drunken stupor, and she's the victim. She was raped repeatedly, yada yada yada, all garbage, all lies. Emma Humphreys was a juvenile delinquent turned prostitute, a filthy little whore and serial false rape accuser and murderess. But it's really amazing. Anytime a woman cries rape, believe. Yeah, why wouldn't you believe? This is part of the feminist indoctrination. Now, as I've pointed out many times, and you'll find examples of this on the timeline, you'll find many on YouTube. When women are attacked by predators, sexual or otherwise, generally they fight back. Now, there are circumstances in which a woman might not fight back, a man might not fight back. If, for example, you're surrounded by a group of men armed with knives who say, "Give us your wallet or else," or a guy puts a gun in your face and says, "Give us your wallet or else," you might well comply. But generally speaking, women, and at times quite young girls, fight back against predators. There have been a few cases fairly recently. There was one in which, in Florida, you'll find this on BitChute, a girl, 11 years old, a guy jumps out of a car, comes at her with a knife, and she knew she was in big trouble. I say she fought him off, but she put up enough resistance to deter him, and he jumped back in his car and drove off. It was captured on CCTV, well, captured on public camera, and he was arrested, and hopefully will get a very long sentence. Women who are attacked by rapists, by sexual predators, fight back. If they don't fight back, they report promptly, or reasonably promptly. The caveat here is a reasonably intelligent, educated woman. Now, there are cases in which they love. This is part of the semantic games. A vulnerable woman. Any woman who claims to have been raped is vulnerable, even if she hasn't been. But a genuinely vulnerable woman might not report a rape. In the United States, where prostitution is illegal, women do. They trade sex for drugs, sorts of sordid stuff like that. People who engage in criminal activity generally won't report. If somebody is selling drugs and gets beaten up and the drug's stolen by a prospective buyer, is he going to report? Well, he or she might report being attacked, but generally speaking, they won't report the illegality, what they were doing. So there are genuinely vulnerable women who will not report rapes. Daniel Holtzclaw, the corrupt police officer, another one, that was in Oklahoma City. Abraham Joseph in Houston, Texas. They were both preying on vulnerable women. Holtzclaw, when he preyed on a woman he thought was vulnerable but wasn't, she reported him once and his goose was cooked. So to get around these claims, to bolster their fraudulent statistics, feminists have come up with this idea of they freeze and women don't report, etc. The first big effort was rape trauma syndrome. The original paper is on the timeline at September 1974, put by Anne Volbert Burgess and her collaborator. Linda Little Linda Little Holmstrom. I always mispronounce that. There's no real reason to question their good faith, but they came up with, they did this study. They went to a Boston hospital. They asked women who turned up claimed to have been raped, and presumably that being a hospital that they were all raped. They asked them how they felt. Well, how do you think they felt? They felt bad, and they did follow-up interviews, and they assembled a large variety of some women reacted differently. They did different things. They moved out of state, or they changed their phone numbers, whatever. And this is all part of rape trauma syndrome. Well, you can't really deduce anything from this. And they came up with what they called silent rapes. A large number of women they claimed had been raped but didn't report it. And it's complete garbage. Now, in recent years, Rape Crisis Scotland in particular has gone further. They come up with this I just froze garbage, but rape trauma syndrome is a method of validating any allegation of rape, however ludicrous. So it fails the Frye test and it fails the Daubert test in the United States. We don't have those here, but they have at times got away with putting this junk science in their evidence. They did it against Bill Cosby, who was, well, there's at least reasonable doubt in the Cosby case, and they used it against Harvey Weinstein, who is a pig, but is he a serial rapist? Well, I don't think so, no. Basically, if a woman claims to have been raped, she testifies that she was raped like 6 months ago by this guy, or maybe 2 years ago, then 6 months ago she went back for more, or maybe she's still dating him last week. She did all sorts of things or didn't do all sorts of things. What happens is the state can put a so-called expert witness on the stand who will testify that anything this woman did is consistent with her being raped. So it is really, there's no such thing as exculpatory evidence with rape trauma syndrome. There is a similar fake syndrome called the child sexual abuse accommodation syndrome. A bloke named Roland Summit came up with that, and that's, again, it validates any allegation of child sexual abuse, even if the accuser recants. And in the case of rape as well, you think if a woman genuinely recanted, that she would that would tend to be exculpatory evidence, but no. Everything, once a man is accused, he's guilty. That's the bottom line. Rape Crisis Scotland went one better than that in 2017 with their videos, but I just froze. You'll find this on the timeline at March the 7th, 2017. It's called Rape Crisis Scotland. These bitches are playing you. In fact, I made a short video called These Bitches Are Playing You. Again, the idea is that if a woman is raped and she doesn't report it once, believe her. If she claims, in other words, if she claims to have been raped about 3 months ago, believe her. Why would you not? And to explain this, women just freeze. I thought I'd fight back, but I just froze, and I didn't report it. I was afraid to report it, but now I'm doing it now, so believe me. Absolute garbage. Rape Crisis Scotland is a particularly odious branch of this insidious international network. its chief executive, Sandy Brinley, said after Alex Salmond was acquitted, it was clearly shown he was the victim of a conspiracy. So she referred to these brave women. No, they weren't brave women, they were liars. And this is all part of the indoctrination. All part of it. Right, this is part of a video by Colin Flaherty. If you haven't heard of him, he was a journalist. He specialises in what he calls black on white violence in the United States, mostly in the United States. He published 2 books full of this sort of thing: Don't Make the Black Kids Angry and White Girl Bleed a Lot. Now, I don't entirely disagree with what he says, but you have a large black underclass in the United States. This isn't a black thing as such. It looks like a black thing, but it isn't a black thing. So it makes the same mistake the feminists do about so-called gendered violence. But this video is quite interesting. I'll just play it to you, and then I'll comment on it.
Whether you're watching Melissa Harris Perry on MSNBC, well, she's not there anymore, or reading magazines like Jet or Ebony or The Griot, very easy to learn that rape is largely unreported among black people. Melissa Harris Perry says it's because black women know that black men are victims of racism, so they don't want to turn their boyfriends, husbands, significant others, people they've never met before, over to the white racist police. Other magazines say 60% of black women entering black colleges have been the victims of rape before the age of 18, and 95% of those rapes are not reported. Some people love numbers. If you do, good for you. The numbers somehow give you comfort, let you help digest this story. Fine. But black sexual violence is wildly out of proportion in this country, and nobody's talking about that. Let's take a listen to the latest example.
A breaking news alert is in Arlington, where police say these 3 high school students in these mugshots are facing charges of sex crimes committed against a female student. The scene of the crime, police say, was Terry Parker High School.
The female student told a teacher she was assaulted toward the end of the lunch period last Thursday. Channel 4's Kamasi Aaron joins us live from the high school with details. Kamasi.
Well, Mary, police say that this victim told them that one of those suspects approached her here on campus after lunch and invited her to go to the field house. And as they were walking there, she said another one of the suspects started walking along with her, and then another suspect jumped over a fence. All 3 of them and the victim ended up inside that field house. Now, we want to show you the pictures of the suspects at this point. Police believe these 3 males, 19-year-old Lavelle Benjamin, 18-year-old Nicholas Evans, and 17-year-old Nicholas Oliver, all students at Terry Parker High School, were the ones involved. The victim told police once they all got to that field house, one of the males began to touch her legs and tried to touch her breasts, while another of the suspects said, "Get her ready." Now, the victim told police all 3 of them forced her to perform sexual acts on them, and then 2 of them forced her to have sexual intercourse. The victim told a teacher at the school, who then alerted a resource officer, and the school board police detained Nicholas Evans and Nicholas Oliver. But the third suspect, Lavelle Benjamin, had already left school for the day and refused to come back, according to police. Well, yesterday they reached out to his mother, and they told her they needed to speak with him, so she, her son, and his attorney all met with investigators downtown. Police say Benjamin did not make a comment at that point, and he was arrested and booked into jail.
Very interesting, this case. That isn't his channel. It's I don't know whose channel it is, but it isn't him. I posted I found an article about that case, and it's felony charges against Terry Parker rape suspects dropped. Girl recounts story that sexual activity was not consensual. I won't be adding this to the timeline. It was an underage girl, and she had sex with 3. I mean, this is this is all quite disgusting, but apparently she was dating one of the boys and had sex with 3 of them. There were quite a few of these cases like this on the timeline of girls who do things that they shouldn't do. I'm not saying that no girl is ever raped at school, but this is just garbage. Colin also quotes Melissa Harris Perry. I mean, these women are, you know, black feminists are no more honest than white ones. They see everything through the prism of race and then sex, and, you know, racism and then sexism and misogyny on top, and they're just totally, you know, it's just the garbage about statistics again. I can only say that from the women I've met in my 64 years, no, they don't tolerate this sort of thing. And you'll find lots of videos on YouTube, especially YouTube, of women. Women are not damsels. They were never damsels, even when they were supposed to have been damsels. No, I'm sorry. So this is it's very, very interesting to say. So I made a video on hangout on this called "Rapism v Racism," because on the one hand they want to indict men, but if these men turn out to be black, it's very. But there are a lot of false allegations made against black men. Whatever the truth about I don't like to use the word disparities, but disparities in rape, etc. The fact is, there are a lot of horrible people out there. And again, as I put it out on the timeline, there's a video by an interview with Jordan Peterson. I think it was the BBC in London, anyway, where he points out that men are violent, women psychopaths, women sociopaths, women antisocials, call them what you want. They, when they choose to destroy people, they use reputation. They attack their reputations and do other things. So there are a lot of horrible women out there as well. The latest nonsense comes from a woman who styles herself Dr. Jessica Taylor. She wears what's called problem glasses. She's got a thing about glasses. I think they're quite cute, actually. And she isn't unattractive until you see the tattoos on both her arms. She's a lesbian and an obvious man hater. And this is from April 29th this year. Half of women have suffered sexual assault by a partner while asleep. This is just absolutely ludicrous. They surveyed more than 22,000 women earlier this year, found that 51% of respondents said they had woken up to their male partners having sex with them and performing sex acts on them while they were asleep. 27% said it happened to them multiple times. As Diana Davison said, there goes my favourite way of waking up. I think Sarah Silverman said that before her. Wouldn't they want to put maybe 5 million men in prison? I mean, it's absolutely ludicrous. There's a lot more nuance to this. As I pointed out before, if two people sleeping together, that they fall asleep in each other's arms, you know, if he touches her, sexual assault, but if she touches him, it's absolutely ludicrous. You can't believe anything this woman says, or women like this say. They're toxic, and of course, if you I mean, disagreeing with a feminist is misogyny, or sexism, misogyny. Arguing with one is misogyny, and there's all sorts of guff here about the abuse they suffer online. Well, if you have an online presence, you'll be trolled, and this woman is quite despicable. I did an article about her and Jessica Valenti. Jessica, dumb and dumber. On on this subject, there's how they give these women the time of day, I don't know, but the goal is to totally subvert the rule of law. They want men convicted of rape. Anytime a woman accuses a man of anything, they want him convicted, preferably without a trial. Utterly despicable. Right, the latest piece of nonsense is a website called Everyone's Invited. It's a website founded by Soma Sarah, and it's dedicated to exposing and eradicating rape culture. and she has a very broad definition of rape culture: groping at a club, sexist language, ludicrous stuff. Reading from here, Soma's experience of rape culture began in her early teenage years. Conversations with friends throughout her time at school and university began to reveal to her just how widespread the issue is for young people. While finishing her English degree at UCL, that's University College London, she began sharing her experiences of rape culture on Instagram. In light of the overwhelming response from those that resonated with her story, Soma founded Everyone's Invited in June 2020. It's since the 8th of March 2021, over 15,000 anonymous testimonies have been submitted and shared. The word anonymous says it all. You're invited here to read testimonies, and this sort of nonsense is being taken seriously. I was at a party, was drinking. Me and a friend were on a couch nearby, nearly passed out because we were so drunk, and this boy came and took his hands and put them on my genitals and proceeded to rough. When I was in primary school, aged 10 or 11, our uniform included either a white shirt in the winter, white polo shirt in summer. When the girls started wearing bras, the boys thought it was fun to try to undo them without us realising. They also thought it was good fun to ping them. Boys of 10 or 11. So they want 10 and 11-year-old boys put on the sex offenders register. Well, I suppose it's John Venables, but it's all garbage like this, and you don't know. It's all apparently all by girls. You don't know what girls do to boys, but there's all sorts of stuff here. The police are taking this rubbish seriously, and you only got to look at the number of false reports made to the police and to other emergency services. It isn't all teenagers doing it. So this is all part of the indoctrination. Why this sort of stuff is reported, I don't know. Well, I do know actually. It's to subvert the rule of law. The press and the rest of the media report this garbage for the most part uncritically. Right, down under, there's lots of controversy in Australasia at the moment. Something manufactured. This is from the Daily Blog. Read the other side of the story. Guest blog by Professor Felicity Goodyear-Smith. 40 assumptions underpin sexual violence bill. This is very good. They're trying all sorts of garbage in New Zealand at the moment. If you check out New Zealand on the Full Soap timeline, make sure you look at the name Louise Nicholas. And there's Felicity Goodyear-Smith. She's got a couple of entries on the timeline. And she says here, it is claimed that the present shockingly low conviction rate makes the bill necessary. But what is the evidence for this? And she goes through it. And demolishes it. There's a bit about the false allegations here, and there's another blog from the same same website, same blog. This is a barrister, Marie Dryberg QC. Four sexual accusers face little risk. This is a woman who's like Bettina Arndt knows what she's talking about. It's quite a long one, here. Both these senior law figures down under are not happy with the way feminists are driving a bus through the rule of law. As I've said before, I think I said it here already, feminists and the so-called sexual violence industry, rape crisis, women against rape, they want convictions. They don't care how they get them, but they want them. And they're not really interested in, there are ways, there are practical ways to reduce rape. The biggest way is to encourage women to take responsibility for themselves. But again, as I said before, I'll keep on saying, they would rather see a woman get drunk, get into a car with a man she doesn't know, and get raped or worse. They'd rather see that happen as long as her attacker is convicted than see the same woman go home with friends, stick with friends. When you take alcohol out of the equation and recreational drugs and regret sex, you'll find that there isn't such a massive problem. I mean, obviously one rape is one rape too many, one murder is one murder too many, but we live in the real world, not some feminist utopia in which there would be no men. So this is so the feminist narrative is that women never lie, men are always guilty, and even when women are caught out lying, they're always victims. I'll give you just one more example of just how ludicrous this is. This is a ludicrous case from Toronto, August 23rd, 1989, and it's got exponentially worse since then. A secretary was kidnapped at gunpoint, she said, driven to an underground garage, raped and beaten. Released 2 hours later. 4 weeks later, it was reported she had been charged with public mischief. Public mischief is there used to be an offence of public mischief in Britain, and in forces women were charged with it for falsely crying rape, and for men as well, for all sorts of things, for false allegations of this, that and the other. There's quite a lot of them in the British newspaper archive. What happened was this dude was charged, but the case against him fell apart. What actually happened was she wasn't raped. She went to a bar. Her name was Carrie Ann Size. She went to a bar and she met a bloke named Alan Cartledge. She went to a bar because her boyfriend was out of town and she was feeling lonely. So he was the only customer there. They went back to his apartment. She spilled a drink on him or something, and they went back to his apartment to change his shirt. And they had sex. Then they shared a taxi. He got out and went back to the bar drinking. She got out of the park, hid under a tree. And then she banged on the door and told the woman who answered she'd been raped, or told her to dial 911. Anyway, when the case fell apart, they charged with public mischief, and they pulled a so-called expert witness, Dr. Elaine Boyens of Toronto Hospital, who told the judge that she had indeed been raped at the age of 12. And this information came from who? Size told her she'd been raped, and Boyens believed her. There were no jury trials for rape in Canada. Rape is now called sexual assault. There were no jury trials. She said that Boyens said that, judging by psychological symptoms, Size had been raped again since, but although not at the time, the place when she told the police. Victims of sexual assault often dissociate, she said. This is another one, dissociation. Sometimes they're able to recall circumstances in which they were attacked, especially if they weren't attacked. She asked by the Crown Prosecutor, Anna Malesic, I don't know if I pronounced that, how Size came up with so many details which subsequently turned out to be untrue. Rather than admit she'd been lying, rather than admit this patient had been lying, Boyens said that her story was untrue in a legal sense. It caused trouble for the falsely accused man, but she had no malicious intent. It's untrue in a legal sense, and in the other sense, There is a psychological truth to science stories that can be known only after more therapy, which you will hopefully pay me to deliver. Well, the judge wasn't having any of this. The prosecutor pointed out that Science would have been upset if her boyfriend had found out she had sex with someone else, so he described assault with screwdrivers and a hammer to get sympathy. Screwdrivers and a hammer. Where were the injuries? It was an 8-day trial. And the Judge Hackborn acquitted Sires because she was a head case. He didn't put it quite like that. Judges never do, but and this is women are never responsible for their actions. They're always victims, even when they're not. Even when the falsely accused, Trevor Armitage stabbed through the heart by Emma Humphreys. Carl Farrell murdered by Farrier Martin. Lots of cases like that. Men are always the perpetrators, and the women are always the victims. Always. So this is the feminist indoctrination. Now the big thing, they're getting sell their own medicine now, taste their own medicine with the trans movement, which is absolutely ridiculous. But it just what can you say? Anyway, let's always look out for feminist indoctrination, the false narratives, the inflated statistics, the semantics, the rhetoric, the facts which may not be facts. Always look for these. I haven't added much to the timeline recently because I'm doing a lot of work on necessary work on my main website, but I will be adding some more. And this video, I don't really making any. I would like to do some more live hangouts, but I've got technical problems. Also, I've got lots of other things. I'm writing for the Duran at the moment, and I'm doing other work as well, so I haven't got a lot of time. But this one will be going out fairly shortly. I'm making this on. It's now the 30th of June. It might be a day or two, or a bit longer before it goes out. But let me have your comments if you've got any cases, especially from the non-Anglophone world, China or Japan, Czechoslovakia. I think I've got about 2 from Czechoslovakia. Anywhere, especially I haven't got cases, or cases you think I've missed. I will probably see you at some time in the not so distant future.